Large is the Smallest We've Got by Jed Hamilton. Chapter 2, Monologue. Guess what it is next week? Halloween. Comes around every year. I used to love Halloween. We all did, except some of us pretended we didn't, like it was childish and all. But they still got dressed up, didn't they? You did. Don't say you did, and I got the pictures. Tom said it was his favorite out of all the seasons in the year, because it was the longest. Tom was real pissy about Halloween. He said it lasted from the end of September through to Thanksgiving. Ha friggin' ha. I reckon it never lasted much more than a month. Depending how it fell, maybe another weekend. You gotta sympathize. After you've taken all that trouble with the costume and stuff, and you only get to wear it a few times, I totally get it that no one wants to pack it up in a trunk for a year. Some people keep their Christmas lights up until Valentine's. I like that. It was great the way everyone dressed up for Halloween. Adults acting like kids. Maybe some of them never got to be kids. But I didn't think the bank clerks should put on face paint. It didn't seem right. Not the bank clerks. You remember that waiter dressed up as Dracula who didn't get it when Tom wanted to know if he recommended the borscht? And when he asked Tom if they had Halloween in England, Tom said no. He believed it was a Cherokee word. It cracked me up. I didn't like the way Tom got all smart-ass about the way we said it, though. Like the English way was right and the American way had to be wrong. The English can be real pricks, can't they? Halloween, like in ha-ha. That's the way we say it, so Tom can just stick his way. What do the English know? It's a Cherokee word. Madison said the October special they for Ghost Trail did was real funny, because the guys behind the cameras, all in their Halloween gear, were way more frightening than anything they could dream up for the TV audience. The tough guy, Bradley, gave an excuse, which I thought was real lame, that the ghosts didn't show because they were busy that night, it being Halloween and all. Wasn't that pathetic? The best times was when we was all down in West Hollywood watching the parade, which I always thought was pretty damn scary. That parade they do, what with some of the stuff they put on the floats. I don't think kids should be allowed to see that kind of stuff. And what the hell has it got to do with Halloween? But there's that one time you gotta remember, when we were all down at a sidewalk cafe on Melrose, or maybe it was 3rd, and we'd seen the parade go by and all these scary costumes, people with axes through their heads and stuff, which was great. How did they do those? Remember how it was so frigging obvious the cops had been told to be gay-friendly because there'd been some bad publicity the year before in West Hollywood, and there'd been a new mayor or something? And the cops were putting a brave face on it, pretending to be in the spirit of it, and smiling at the cameras like they'd been told to, but it was obvious as shit they didn't like it. Not one little bit. Then these 2 huge guys dressed as women cops came along. They must have been 7 feet tall. Why is it so many transvestites are 7 feet tall? You ever notice that? Or are they cross-dressers? Do you know the difference? Damned if I do. Got nothing against them, but I don't know the difference, and it pisses me off. Anyway, these 2 cops were sitting on the front of their patrol car, uncomfortable as shit, and the transvestite cops were chucking them under the chin and flirting with them, which the real cops definitely did not like. But the crowd loved it, so the real cops kept their cool, and the gay cops went on and on making jokes about what the serve bit of protect and serve meant, and when they handcuffed the real cops to each other, it got a bit ugly, and the real cops said it wasn't funny. But the gay cops wouldn't take the cuffs off the real cops, and everyone was laughing. Except the real cops. Now that was what I call a really good Halloween. I could do without some of the stuff on the floats, though. I gotta be honest with you. Then there was the night Scott was in his wheelchair, which was more or less all the time at the end. And people thought it was a Halloween thing, because there was a fair number of baby Janes wheeling Joan Crawfords around. And it was really sad that some of the people on the sidewalk thought Scott was in costume because he was in a wheelchair and all. Worse than sad. Truth is, I couldn't bear it if you want to know. He didn't seem to mind though and started making out he was a zombie, which was actually genuinely scary. But we all laughed, just like the passers-by laughed, and Madison was laughing but told him to stop it because it wasn't nice. Then it turned out he wasn't acting, and Tyler had to take him to A&E, remember? It has to be the worst Halloween ever. I never much liked Halloween after that. Anyhow, it's next week. Weird, huh? The thing that really bugs me about Scott is he always left it one step too late. 'Cause I was sorry for him. Sorry for him? Christ, there isn't a word gets close. He said once when I was sitting with him on Santa Monica Pier watching the dolphins, he said, imagine what it would be like if you were a dolphin and couldn't swim. But if he had just accepted that's how it was, and here's an example. If he wore his first pair of glasses when he should have, instead of putting up that fight, there's no end of stuff he could have done. He stopped going to the movies. Did you know that? Because he couldn't make out the picture. And by the time he caved in and finally got himself some glasses, he couldn't walk. Not far anyway, not without a frame. And then he wouldn't go to the movies because he needed to take a piss every 5 minutes. Boy, was he angry if ever someone hinted he should try a wheelchair. Maybe you should. Perhaps. You ever tried one? Didn't matter how they led up to hit, did he get antsy. Never got himself a hearing aid either. Not before his hand shook so much he couldn't work the TV remote or tape deck. And he never asked anyone to put on any music for him. And Scott loved his music, remember? But oh no, he'd not ask. Not Scott. I wonder what kind of world he ended up living in. Not hearing too good, not seeing much that wasn't doubled up or blurred. Towards the end, not even being able to speak. Not so you understand. At least not so I could understand. Most of the time, anyway. What kind of world do you think that was? Even after he was persuaded to buy a top-of-the-range motorized wheelchair, it was days before he used it. And by the time he gave up the fight, he couldn't hardly work it. Not for a good while, anyway. It was stupid. I really liked Scott, but it was plain stupid, the way he made things worse for himself. I hated seeing him struggling in and out of that car. When the wheelchair arrived, he almost stopped driving. Would you believe that? Gave up altogether for a while, until he came to terms with the chair. Scott, giving up driving. Needed someone else to take him around. Totally dependent. Couldn't get anywhere otherwise. But he never asked, did he? The other guy always had to make the move. I get mad when I start thinking about that. What he missed out on, because he was so fucking stubborn. So when he finally caved in and got himself a wheelchair, it was way too late to be much use. Always a step too late. Always fucking always. And wouldn't it have been so easy if he'd taken that step when he should have? He could have done all kinds of stuff he never got around to. Because he never took any of those steps when he should. Never. Not a one of them. Always a step too late. Because he wouldn't ask anyone to help him because, I don't know. I don't understand it. There's things I wish I'd done with Scott. Places I wish we'd gone. All kinds of stuff. When he could do them easy. When he could go there and no problem. When we could have gone together. All of us. Or just him and me. I liked that when it was just him and me. But he had to make it hard for himself, didn't he? That's what bugged me about Scott. You know what bugs me more than anything else? After all that fuss, I think he only used the motorized goddamn chair a half a dozen times. Maybe a couple times more. A half a dozen times. Beats everything, doesn't it?